The book we're going to talk about today is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I always want to say readers eat last or something like that, so if I get that, I might just leave it in. As we're going to talk about this book, let's start with a quote. It says, "Those who have opportunity to work in organizations that treat them like human beings to be protected rather than a resource to be exploited come home at the end of the day with an intense feeling of fulfillment and gratitude. This should be the rule for all of us, not the exception." And that's really the main thrust of the book, that we should be treating people like humans, that they shouldn't be numbers, and that if they are numbers, we need to humanize them by going to see their faces, by going to put a face to that number, and that leaders are, and the term servant leader, I'm not sure if it comes up, but there's definitely that implication in there that leaders are servants, that they are there to enable the best from the people that they have underneath them that they interact with. One of the big concepts in there in the book is the circle of safety. The circle of safety is, I guess, like you being able to go into work and feeling free that you can talk about failures you have and you're not just going to get fired. You can talk about things that are going wrong and you can bring up weird ideas and no one's going to ridicule you for that. It's not going to affect your job prospects. It's not going to affect like your hiring, your pay, anything like that. That you have opportunity to be you, to express issues you have, failures you have, and that someone's going to come along and support you with it and help you get the resources you need, and that your leader will do that because your leader's job is to enable you to do a good job. So when you don't have the circle of safety, what you're going to get is constant low-grade stress that's just kind of pervasive all the time. In the book Lab Rats, which I read a while ago, and if you want to see a review of that, let me know. I don't have it. I borrowed it from the library, but I can certainly borrow it again and write a review of that. So in Lab Rats, they talked a lot about low-grade stress being very much like PTSD. It's just a constant low-grade anxiety that is amping up the not-so-good chemicals in you, and I don't remember what they're called, so I'm not going to say it, but the not-so-good chemicals and depressing the good chemicals. Seeing that a lot in jobs, they're talking more about open office spaces, but it's, again, very similar ideas in that as far as the low-grade stress. And having, again, bad management was in Lab Rats as well. And that ties into this, that if you're having bad managers that aren't creating a circle of safety, you're going to have constant low-grade stress that is just, it's going to take years off your life. It's going to make you perform worse, and it's just bad for you. It's kind of like PTSD. You got a question is like, what does it look like when employees feel safe? So let's look at another quote out of the book. It says, "What too many leaders of organizations fail to appreciate is that it's not the people that are the problem. The people are fine. Rather, it's the environment in which the people operate that is the problem. Get that right and things just go." So I can even say that for me. I've worked, not at this office, but at multiple offices of my own for 10 years now. And I did spend about 3 months working in another organization, and the environment there was not the right environment for me, for sure. And in fact, most of the people that I worked with at the time left. My wife had a job decades ago now, and it was a bad environment as well. And we knew a few people who went to work there. We didn't know them very well at the time, but we got to know them afterwards. And like, why didn't you tell me? And like, well, we didn't really know you, and we would have told you never to work there because it was not a great place. But we didn't know you at the time. Now, since then, that organization has transformed itself really, and they actually came to my wife and like some of the complaints that she brought up, and then the complaints that the next employees brought up. They said like, led us to really evaluate how we treated our staff, what we were doing, and we changed. And we are actually involved with this organization again now, despite my wife would see them in the coffee shop and like avoid them. Like, I can't go in, like we'd leave. And so they actually, cornered us isn't the right word. We couldn't leave. And they came up and said, "Hey, we're really sorry. This was our fault. We know we didn't treat you well. And we made some changes. Here's some of the changes we've made. We're really sorry." And then we said, "Oh, okay." And a couple years later, when opportunity came back up to engage with this organization, we went back in. So it was an example of, and loved it. Like I've been engaged with them now for a number of years and love it, and have like looked for opportunities to be more engaged with this volunteer organization. But that's a good example of like something changing to fit people better, and now people are there for 4, 7, 8, 9 years as opposed to like 1 year, which was like their standard. That's how long somebody stayed, and had very little to do with what they were doing and very much to do with how they were doing it. So when leaders are creating a circle of safety, like I said already, they take the numbers in a spreadsheet and they really look to put a face to that, right? You don't just look at the engineering staff and fire a bunch. You actually know the engineering staff and know what they're doing, and you engage with them. When you engage with them, make people feel like wanted in an organization and valued, then you can do a lot of good stuff to really help them thrive, and they'll do stuff for you too. Reminds me of a story of Chapman's Ice Cream, which I have some affiliation with. They're from Ontario, and I know people who have worked with them. So they had a fire years ago. They had a fire in a big, anyways, the factory was flattened. It was done. And they came together and like did rolling layoffs, and people figured out how to like keep those that needed the employment more around. And they basically kept most of their staff after having like a year to rebuild the factory. People came back, and people were able to live through that time as well. And they talk in the book, they talk about a business that, your vacation time was all like a problem. You had to like keep it, you had to use it by certain days. And I kind of said, you know what, you guys can all figure it out. And when someone's spouse got sick, they banded together and like, oh, I can skip a week of vacation this year. And they basically gave the person like months and months off on vacation time because all the other employees banded together. And that's what you get when you have a circle of safety. According to the book, you get an organization where people look out for each other and they treat each other like family. It's another big thread in this, that leaders, teams, when you hire someone, you're bringing them into your family, and you should be treating them as such. You should be there to help protect them and help them excel where they want. And there's a big thrust of like family, like a parent watching over children. And that's really what a business should be doing, not just a quest for numbers. So before the recommendation of should you read Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, let me do one final quote. So it is not when things come easily that we appreciate them, but when we have to work hard for them, or when they are hard to get, that those things have greater value to us. That's from 278, 279. A lot of stuff, if you looked at the written version of this, there's footnotes with like what page you'll find this on in the hardback copy you see over my shoulder, so that you could look it up yourself and tell me I'm wrong or tell me I'm right. So should you read the book? I think one caveat I have with the book is if you're going to read it and think that it's just going to actually change your organization, you're probably wrong. It is going to take work. Just like the quote said, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and that's why we value it. Things that we have to work to achieve are things we value. Do I like it? I do. I think it could also be frustrating for some people, though. If you're in an organization that you can't change, if you're like the low person on the totem pole and they don't have a circle of safety and they treat you like a number and all those other things, you're going to probably be pissed off because you're going to say like, that's not what I want. This is not how I want to be treated, and I can't change anything about it. And that's true, you probably can't. So that's my only caveat. If you are a leader, if you have opportunity to lead or affect your organization in any way, I think Leaders Eat Last is a good book for you to go through and figure out how to help your people excel. Because I wrote this years ago. There's actually a link in the written version of this to a post I wrote in, I think, 2012, that your job as a leader is to enable those below you to excel. Because I believe that. And this is a good book to give you a framework to start doing that in your organization if you're not already. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, you can subscribe. Generally, my book videos are going to come out on Fridays, I think. Yeah. And I got tons more book reviews on my site, actually. I will put a link in the show notes for that, for like a whole bunch of written book reviews I did over the last years. If you see any of those, you'd like me to look at them again and talk about them, just let me know in the comments, and I would be happy to do that. That's it. Liked it, thumbs up, subscribe, don't hit the bell, go read instead. Watch the video when you have time. And if you want to support me so I have more time to read books and talk to you about them, you can find that at curtismchale.ca/Patreon, patreon.com/CurtisMchale for sure. Have a good one.